Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and take a look at how you can allow or disallow the use of DOM elements, or let's say any other element as a matter of fact, inside your compound components. So what you can do first of all is you can just go ahead and probably add a line break in order to get them on separate lines, right? Which looks and works perfectly fine. But if you go ahead and take a look under the hood, you're going to be seeing a lot of errors, right? Actually a single error, but it will be a big one. So you see, it says React does not recognize the setChecked prop on a DOM element. If you intentionally want to appear in the DOM as a custom attribute, spell it as lowercase instead. So what's happening here? Well, you remember that we are using react.children.map to iterate over every single child, right? So what we are doing here is if you console log the child, you're going to see that the second child is a BR, right? You can see the type of this child is BR, whereas the type of the rest of them is actually a function, right? Checked and set checked. This is our function, right? Especially again, the type of this is also a function, which is a custom element. So remember, in React, there are a few valid definitions of an element, right? DOM elements, of course, elements, then you have classes, you have functions, you also have null, right? Null is also a valid JSX element. So what you can do is you can filter out, let's say if you do not want to act on the DOM elements, what you can do is you can say if child dot, let's say child dot type, because that is what it is not equal to function, we know that this is not our element, right, to be messed around. So I can just go ahead and return the child instead. We don't really want to act on this one. So the moment I do that, refresh, now you can see we do not have that warning anymore, but we have something else. SetChecked is not a function. And of course, this is hugely wrong because this should be type of child.type, right? So now if I refresh this again, you can see it works absolutely fine, but with no warnings in the console. Now, however, this do allow the use of any random DOM element, right? Hello world, right? So it'll also appear. If you want to restrict this, the way you can do it is if type of child is equal to string, then you know that you have got a DOM element. So you can say DOM element right here. And then instead of returning the child, you can throw a new error. You can say DOM element is not allowed inside the checkbox component, right? And just to make this even more helpful, you can go ahead and actually write the type of DOM element found, right? So now if you go ahead and refresh this, close the console, you can go ahead and see that, well, this is again a wrong statement. This should be in fact equal to string. Let's refresh this and you can now see pDOM element is not allowed inside checkbox, right? You can also give it a nice gesture like this. Refresh and you get a P element not allowed inside the DOM, right? Even if you're writing like span or something else, it'll perfectly show you that this is a wrong thing. You're doing a wrong thing. So that's one way to go about. Another way is just pretty much ignore the child itself. If that is a DOM element, you can go ahead and just return null, which will not render anything at all. So you can have all sorts of screaming and everything going on, but React will never show it because that is inside a DOM element. Now, another thing which you can do is you can just white label, or not really white label, just whitelist the components which you want, right? So you can say that if child.type is not equal to label, right, which is our functional component. And the reason you can compare this type directly to a function is because this will also be the same function, right? Because remember, we saw the child.type If you go ahead and take a look, you know that child.type is in fact a function. And this function is exactly the same function which we talked about. So that is why you can compare them with equality, because they are referentially equal. They point to the same function in the memory. Because again, these are outside the component. They are not recreated again and again. So if child.type is not equal to label and child.type is not equal to, let's say, checkbox input, then you want to throw new error, no custom element supported, right? And looks like we already have an element which is not really custom, so we can go ahead and remove that. So now you can see that even if you have a custom element, let's say something like this, which just returns a p tag, even if you have something like this, this will also not work. Earlier it would have worked, but now it will throw you the error that no custom element is supported, because you have just white labeled, or not really white label, I keep on saying that, you have just whitelisted the elements which you allow to be used inside your this whole setup, right? And refresh and it's gone. So yeah, that's pretty much it, how you're going to create stuff like this. It is pretty interesting to see actually how this all works. And yeah, I mean, there's this one little thing that if you take out this component, let's say if you try to use label without being inside checkbox, then you'll run into some problems, because these things, the set checked is not defined. If you try to use checkbox input, these two things are not defined, right? So we'll figure out how that will work and how that will happen. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to see you in the next one, thinking about how we can fix that particular thing.